Well, we've been in a series called what? Ships. Right. We've been talking about ships, which is everything relationships, okay? And so week one we came in, we talked about friendships, and really strategically we were talking about very close friendships, okay? The ones that are closest to us and how influential our friends are, okay? And we said this, we took from the verse in 1 Corinthians, it says, bad company corrupts good character. And so we want to make sure the company that we're keeping, the friends that we have in our lives, are people of good character. And so we had you guys write down a few things and kind of take a look at your friend circles. And then last week was week 2, and we just covered the subject of sex, right? And we talked about how God sees it, how, the world kind of makes it so casual, but God said it's something sacred. And it's a good thing because he's the one that created it, but it's a good thing within a boundary. And that boundary that God put on it is marriage, okay? And so we just talked about how that's a gift for you, but it's to be opened within the confines and the boundaries of marriage. And that brings us to week 3, which I think should be a fun subject, because today we're going to talk about dating, okay? We're just going into dating just a little bit. I'm not here to spoil the idea of dating. I think dating's fun, okay? Dating's a really cool way to really get to know somebody else, okay? I think dating's a really cool way to really get to know yourself a little bit better. We find out a lot about ourselves when we start dating somebody. We find out what's important and different things like that. Now, obviously, guys, the big idea of dating, if you want to take the core, why do we date? If you want that answered, it's to find your spouse, right? You're trying to find out the person that you could spend the rest of your life with. But more so, man, middle school and high school, it might just be like, hey, you really like spending time with that person. And so you know what? You guys start becoming boyfriend, girlfriend. For you, maybe that's it. Maybe it's you saw somebody and you're like, wow, they're too attractive. I have to go out with them, right? It could be for all different reasons. What I want to address today is it's more so just talking about taking steps wisely in dating, okay? And I want every single one of you guys to one day spend the rest of your life with God's very best for you, all right? And so that's why we just kind of want to talk about this idea, because we can date the world's way and we can date in a godly way. And man, I just fully believe that God's way is the best way. And so we're just going to look at wisdom in dating. If you want a title today, it's wisdom in dating. Before I jump too far into it, I want to do a quick little poll. Who in here you're like, you know what, I'm currently in a relationship. Got a boyfriend, got a girlfriend. Yo. All right. A lot of you. Who in here would be like, I don't really know what I got. I got something. It's complicated, but I'm not really sure. All right. That's fair. We all been there. Don't be ashamed. Who in here you're like, oh, I'm single and I am pumped about it. I love in the single life. Yeah, look at all y'all. Yes. Who in here you're like, I'm single, but shoot, I don't want to be. I'm just waiting for that one. Yes, all right. Fair enough, guys. A little bit of everybody in here, a little bit of everybody. Me, when I was in high school, middle school, like I was the guy, I wasn't allowed to date till I'm 16, which majority of you guys aren't even 16 yet, right? So kind of crazy, but it's just something me and my parents came up with. They were like, hey, when you're old enough to drive your date and you're old enough to pay for your date, you can take a date, all right? So for me, I had to wait till I was 16. Obviously, I could still hang around with girls, things like that, but I had to wait a while. So no matter what boat you're in, whether you got one, never had one, whatever, you're going to be fine, plenty of time, no need rushing in to any of that, okay? Well, when we talk about dating and being wise in dating, the first thing I want to talk about today is, number one, don't date to fill a void, all right? Don't date to fill a void. And I actually might have sent this out of order. No, I didn't. Okay, don't date to fill a void. And we're going to look at a message here in John chapter 4 real quick. We're going to look at verses 10 through 18, but I'm going to catch you up to speed. This is Jesus' encounter with a Samaritan woman, okay? And the Samaritan woman is totally thrown that Jesus is talking to her because her kind of people, his kind of people, they don't hang out, right? But Jesus is striking up a conversation with this woman, and she's like, why are you even like here? What are you doing talking to me? And we pick up in verse 10, and it says, Jesus replied, if you only knew the gift of God, the gift God has for you and who you're speaking to, you would ask me, and I would give you living water. But sir, you don't have a rope or a bucket, she said, and this well is very deep. Where would you get this living water? And besides, do you think you're greater than our ancestor Jacob, who gave us this well? How can you offer better water than he and his sons and his animals enjoyed? And Jesus replied, anyone who drinks this water will soon become thirsty again, but those who drink the water that I give will never be thirsty again. It becomes a fresh, bubbling spring within them, giving them eternal life. She says, please, sir, give me this water, then I'll never be thirsty again, and I won't have to come here to get water. Jesus says, go and get your husband, okay? And she says, I don't have a husband. The woman replied, Jesus said, you're right, you don't have a husband, for you have had 5 husbands, and you aren't even married to the man you're living with now. You have certainly spoken the truth, okay? Now, the Bible doesn't say, did she leave her 5 husbands or did her 5 husbands leave her, okay? We don't have that information. But if her 5 husbands left her, then I would imagine Jesus is talking to a woman who's probably dealing with a lot of rejection, a lot of concerns about, hey, am I even valuable? I just had 5 guys pass up on me saying, hey, they can't stand being around me, okay? That would probably cause some issues there. And if she's the one that left them, then it causes me to believe that, man, she was hoping to find something. She was looking in those husbands to fill a void, okay, to quench a need, and she was unsuccessful, all right? She wasn't able to do it. But either situation that we take it of, she's looking for something. She's looking for a need, and Jesus shows up on the scene, and he says, I am what you have been looking for. In other words, I am fulfillment. I am happiness. I am enough. I am acceptance. I am the value that you're searching for, okay? And so in talking about wisdom in dating, we will never want to date in hopes of filling a void, okay? If we have an emotional void where it's just like, man, I don't feel like anybody likes me. Man, filling that with a date, with dating somebody, a boyfriend, a girlfriend, that's not going to fix that. It's what we call a temporary fix. It's called something to fill the void, to distract us from that void. But Jesus is supposed to be the one filling any kind of void in that regard, okay? Dating because you feel you need to feel liked, wanted, accepted, admired, it's guaranteeing you hurt in the future. Because people are never meant to fill those voids for you. They weren't created to, okay? We weren't created to fill those voids for each other. Jesus was supposed to fill those for us. He was supposed to fill any kind of gap that you're experiencing. He wants to be your every need. Dating should not be for validation, should not be for fulfillment or confidence. That job falls to Jesus, okay? He says that he is the living water. He's your source of value and acceptance, all right? Number 2, when we're talking about dating wisely, is be picky, all right? When you guys are talking about, man, I really want to go out with somebody, I just want to tell you, be picky. It's not a bad thing to be picky. You don't want to just the first person to walk up to you, hey, you're fine. Oh, okay, let's date. No, we want to be picky, man. We want to think about this thing. We want to think about the people that we're encountering. Okay, remember the other week when I was like, you guys have a criteria for your coffee. You need 4 shots of this, 3 pumps of that, etc. And it's very complicated. But when it comes to your friends, you're kind of just like fun. Okay, well, when it comes to dating, a lot of times, sometimes we're just like, the criteria for me to date somebody, they just got to be hot. That's the only thing I really need. That's my criteria. That's where it stands. As long as they're hot, hey, we can make this work, girl. Like, let's go out, right? And so what I want to kind of do today is I want you guys to, instead of writing 3 things that's a criteria to be your best friend, let's tighten it up. Let's do 4 or 5 things that somebody has to be walking in, somebody has to have some values they have to hold in order for them to be somebody you would consider dating. If you want to take out your phones and write them down real quick, go ahead. I'll give you guys kind of an example of what I'm talking about. Somebody that I would want to date would have to be somebody who loves God. That's criteria. That's number 1 for me. They got to love God. They got to be somebody who makes church a priority. They got to be someone who doesn't trash talk people. I don't like when people dog on other people. I don't like when they bully them. I don't like when they gossip, when they talk poorly about them. That gets me very mad. Like when they're rude to other people, man, I don't jive well with that. So doesn't trash talk people. Maybe another one is sets physical boundaries. Man, I want to go out with somebody that's going to set physical boundaries, that isn't okay with going all the way. That's a criteria for me, okay? So something like that. Think about it for a moment, man. What does somebody have to hit? What do they have to hold and value as a person, morals that they have to have in order for you to consider taking them on a date? Because we've got to have a standard. 2 Corinthians 6:14, it says this, do not be unequally bound together with unbelievers. Do not make mismatched alliances with them, inconsistent with your faith. For what partnership can righteousness have with lawlessness, or what fellowship can light have with darkness? The first thing you guys should be asking when you're considering dating somebody is, does their faith line up with mine? Okay, do they believe what I believe? Why? Man, core values, what you believe in, those are one of the most important things. You want to make sure that person that you're getting into a relationship with, that they have values like yours, and that you're not going to be pressured to compromise on yours. Do my beliefs, my morals, my standards line up with theirs? If you guys think that a close friend can rub off on you and get you down the wrong path, I guarantee you a boyfriend or girlfriend has even more power than a best friend. Man, it's so much easier to make a compromise for somebody that we're crushing on. It's just how it is, right? Be picky. And so what I believe Paul is saying in that verse is saying, don't try to blend 2 people that believe completely different. Don't try and be like, oh man, they don't even know the name Jesus. They don't want nothing to do with Jesus. Hey, that's not a good blend for you because that doesn't match up with what you believe. We want to be dating people with similar beliefs. So have a few things that the guy or girl needs to match up with in order to date you. And a side note, it's okay to wait for someone who does the little things. Ladies, it's okay if you don't want to date a guy until you come across a guy who will open doors for you. That's okay. Ladies, it's okay if you want to wait until you meet a guy that says yes, ma'am, and yes, sir. It's okay. Be picky. Be picky. Look for a good one. Proverbs 31, verse 30. It says, charm and grace are deceptive and superficial. Beauty is vain. But a woman who fears the Lord, reverently worshiping, obeying, serving, and trusting him with awe-filled respect, she shall be praised. What it's saying is good looks, charm, things like that, man, they're not the valuable things. It's saying that character is what's valuable. Character. You guys all have character. It's either bad character, decent character, great character, but character is by far one of the most important things that you possess. And you're the only one who gets to control whether you have good, bad, nasty, in the middle, whatever. Right? The character of the person is what's important. Be picky enough and patient enough to find out who they are. Okay? Let's look at 1 Corinthians 13 real quick. A lot of you guys know this verse, verses 4 through 7. It says, love is patient and kind. Love is not jealous or boastful or proud or rude. It does not demand its own way. It's not irritable, and it keeps no record of being wrong. It doesn't rejoice about injustice, but rejoices whenever the truth wins out. And love never gives up, never loses faith, is always hopeful, and endures through every circumstance. Guys, if you're smart, anybody that you consider dating, you should put up against this verse. Because I know for myself, I would only want to be with somebody that's a loving person, okay? Not a jealous one, not a boastful, not a rude person. I don't want to be dating a rude person. Not somebody who demands on their own way. How annoying is that, man? Not somebody irritable, easily angry, not somebody who holds a grudge. So this verse, this Bible, it's equipping us saying, hey, if you're interested in somebody, awesome. Take a little bit of time to get to know them and see if they kind of look somewhat like this verse, if they reflect that. Okay? Easy instruction that we find in the Bible. And if you guys are crushing on somebody and you're thinking about dating somebody, do yourself one favor. Talk to God about them before you date them. I think it's one of the simplest things we can do as Christians, but we forget to do it. Talk to God before you move forward. And I think sometimes we get caught up in this idea of, oh, God's not going to speak to me. He's not going to tell me if they're right or wrong. Oh, yes, he will. I'm telling you, when it came to learning God's voice on what he was saying on matters, this was one of the easiest ones to recognize, because if I was dating somebody that was not good for me, I would feel awful on the inside. There would be this stomach churning. There would be this knowing. Every time I would go to hang out with them, I'd be like, oh my gosh, I'm going to eventually have to break up with this person. I just knew. Why? Because it's talking to God about it. Man, it's so simple. It's the simplest answer. God knows who you should and shouldn't be dating. You don't. Nobody does. God does. So let's go to him and let's talk to him about it. Proverbs 3:5, it says, trust in the Lord with all your heart and lean not on your own understanding. Trust God to know who you should and should not be dating. Number 3, when it comes to dating wisely, set boundaries. You say, what's a boundary, Brayden? Okay, I'm going to give you a boundary. Let's say that I'm a guy, I'm single, and I'm okay with giving my girlfriend a kiss, but I'm not okay with making out and doing other things because it makes me want to go even farther. So my boundary is between kissing and making out, okay? Let's say that's the boundary. That's kind of what I'm talking about when I'm saying set boundaries, okay? A boundary for your dating relationship. See, last week we talked about the importance of boundaries, especially with sex. We said that good things, important things, they come with boundaries because boundaries actually protect what's inside, okay? So a good question for someone that you want to date is first finding out what their boundaries are. Establish that between the two of you. Come on, dating's a big person thing again too, man. Be able to have those big people conversations with the people you're dating. Hey, what's your boundaries? I want to make sure that you're not going to tempt me to go somewhere that I have no desire to go. I want to make sure you're not going to walk me into sin. What's your boundaries? Okay? The Bible says in Song of Songs 8, verse 4, it says, promise me, O women of Jerusalem, not to awaken love until the time is right. In other words, it's saying don't excite marital things until you're married. making out, other intimate things, they awaken something that was never created to be stopped halfway through. That's why we set physical boundaries. So we don't start something that wasn't created to be stopped, but we know we can't let it go that far. It's challenging to stop things from going farther because it wasn't created to be stopped, all right? That's why it's called the slippery slope. Once you cross that line, it's so hard to stop from going farther and farther and farther. That's why we get boundaries and we establish them with the person that we're dating. These are my boundaries, not crossing it. You tempt me to do it, we got an issue. I tempt you to do it, we got an issue, all right? Having boundaries protects something of extreme value until the time is right, all right? And we talked about last week, man, the time is right when you're married. So Brayden, where do I put the boundary? It's a great question. It's something you definitely should be asking. My best response to you is, hey, where should you put a physical boundary in your relationship? Is whatever you're comfortable doing, knowing that Jesus would be sitting right next to you. So if Jesus was sitting right next to you in a room, would you be comfortable doing X, Y, Z? If you wouldn't, that means the boundary needs to be set before those things. And what's crazy is we think about that and you're like, oh yeah, I mean, that'd be so awkward even to just make out in front of God. Like that'd be really awkward. Well, the truth is like God's with you wherever you go. Like Jesus is always there. But if you'd be uncomfortable doing it in front of Jesus watching you, then that tells me that it's too far. That tells me that it's sin. It tells me that you shouldn't be doing it. So you need to set that boundary up before there. Is that pretty clear? I feel like that's super clear. And man, if you want to talk, I'm telling you, if you're a girl, talk to Ashley about some boundaries. Guys, talk to me. I'll talk to you about some boundaries. Man, I have one buddy. He didn't even kiss his wife until they were married. Why? Because he was so aware of the slippery slope, and he watched so many people go farther physically than they wanted to do, all because it started with a kiss. And so I was like, man, like I can't argue with that. That's very true. And all the people I know, man, you start getting into that kind of stuff, you end up going farther. So I applauded him for where he put that boundary. If you guys ever come across somebody who's like, hey, I want to go this far intimately or physically or whatever, and they're like, and if we don't, man, I'm out of here. Let them go. I'm telling you, run as fast as you can because that person is proclaiming to you that what's important to them is more important than what's important to you. Okay, that's a very selfish attitude right there. And so they're trying to pressure you into doing something that you haven't wanted to do. That's not the person to be dating. They got some maturing to do, all right? So discuss each other's physical boundaries and know where your boundary is before the discussion. This is crucial, okay? Because otherwise, you will compromise yours to accommodate theirs. If I don't have mine set and the girl's like, well, I'm okay doing this, this, and this, I'm like, oh yeah, I guess I could bend mine and actually go there because you want to make the other person happy. No, have your boundaries before. That way when you walk in, you can present them and you're not accommodating somebody else's. Last one for tonight, guys, and we'll start closing. Kira, if you could jump on keys, that'd be awesome. Number 4 is this, and this is probably the best one for tonight, and I just encourage you guys to really write this down. It's keep Jesus first, okay? We're talking about dating wisely. We got to keep Jesus first. Farron, can I help you find something? You good? Okay. Keep Jesus first. Mark 12, verse 30 says this, and you shall love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all of your soul, with all of your mind, and with all of your strength. This is the first commandment. Guys, you're only able to do that if God is number one in your life. You're only able to do that if he is the first priority. And if we're to love the Lord like that, doesn't it make sense that we date someone who does the exact same? If you're someone who wants to honor the Bible and be like, man, I love God with everything I got, it only makes sense that the person you're dating should kind of have the same value. I wrote this quote down because I think it's extremely powerful. It says, relationships should draw you closer to Christ, not closer to sin. I think it's so valuable because really relationships are doing one or the other. They're going to pull you towards sinful things or they're going to pull you closer to God. And some of you might have to kind of check where you're at. Man, have I been tempting my girlfriend, my boyfriend? Have I been causing them to go closer to sin? Or have I been actively pulling them closer to God? Relationships should draw you closer to Christ, not closer to sin. So we need to get God involved in every area. That means if something comes up and it's between your boyfriend or your girlfriend and God, God wins. Okay, God never gets second place. He never gets put on the back burner. It means being intentional about having him a part of your time together in your relationship. It means that God should be a common conversation between you and your boyfriend, girlfriend. It means encouraging each other to attend church, encouraging each other. Hey, have you read your Bible this week? That's a good question to ask your boyfriend, girlfriend. Man, hold each other accountable. Like, hey, let's chase after God. That's what a godly relationship looks like. That's what putting God first looks like. Because I promise you this, God will be as involved in your relationship as you'll let him. I found it's great wisdom that in order to get God's best, you keep God number one. And keep God very involved in each step. And I promise you that includes dating. Include God in dating.